Okay, guys. There we go. Now we're recording. Great. Awesome. Okay, super, guys. So this evening session is going to be quite an interesting one. And I just found that for me, it's something that I found quite fascinating. And I've always found it fascinating, and that's self-leadership. So the question to ask ourselves is, what is self-leadership? And self-leadership is the practice of, one, understanding who you are, identifying your desired experiences, okay, and intentionally guiding yourself towards them. So it spans the determination of basically what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. So basically that's the bottom line of self-leadership.
Yes, the film for me. Explain each line.
So
I'm making notes here.
I know you're making notes. So having said that, all right, when we look at, most of the time people say self-leadership, lead yourself, but what does that actually really boil down to? And you cannot lead yourself unless you understand who you are as an individual. How do I tick? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? How do I react? How do I respond? Am I introvert? Am I extrovert? You know, so one has to have an understanding of who you are. And then once we understand who we are, we'll then need to identify what are my desired experiences. So if I desire to be kind, or I desire to have a good relationship with this person, or if I desire to, so it's desiring experiences. Then based on who you are, what you would like an outcome to be, then it's to say, okay, now how do I guide myself towards us? And that is self-leadership. So it is all about what we do, why we do it, and how we do it. So I think that's any questions on that, or want to expand a little bit more?
I want everybody to peep on it.
So when you look at that for yourself, from self-leadership to what we've been normally conceptualized to what self-leadership is, to what I've just shared with you now, is there a difference? Is there something new for you to learn, or have you always seen self-leadership like this? Anybody want to comment?
Come, Vali, you first.
Something to learn.
Something new to learn, eh? Because it is a different concept to self-leadership. How have you seen self-leadership before, Vali?
As spending the time at mentoring and reading.
Awesome.
Those two.
Awesome, nice.
To get to someone else experience to help you.
Nice, true, good one. Awesome. Anybody else want to add? Yes, George.
Yeah, a big thing about self-leadership, Michelle, I think is also to be a leader, but you must also be available to be led. In other words, you must also can succumb to another leader, to follow a leader, as well as apply leadership yourself. So you must always have yourself in a position that you can also follow orders, or follow a leader, as well as be a leader.
Nice. Awesome. And Leonie says it's about being teachable.
For me, it's about accountability.
Okay.
Self-leadership is being accountable to yourself, to however you are driven. In my case, I'm driven by my creator on a daily basis, I'll be honest. And I'm accountable to that relationship of, Lord, am I leading myself and maximizing myself the way you want me to maximize? But there is something new that I saw here tonight, I'll be honest. The fact of identifying desired experiences, I went, wow, that is a wow for me, in terms of, all right, do I really look at leading myself towards achieving those desired experiences? And I can tell you for now, I'm going to hold it, because I'm not. So I want to see the rest of the teaching tonight, because that's already now in my mind.
Awesome, nicely put. Because that was also for me, how often my question was going to be, we're answering all the stuff that we know, but how often, and yes, we do understand who we are, and we understand that that's what self-leadership is, but have we ever sat down and said, here's a goal for my desired experience that I would like, and to work towards it? So yes, it is being everything that we have said to this point. And Sonia says, learning through experiences and being accountable for your growth. So that is 100% correct. Anybody else want to add anything? You all good? Okay, cool. So it is quite interesting to look at it from a different perspective. Okay, there we go. Right. Okay. So here I found a lovely chart that explains things quite nicely, where self-leadership is in the middle of this. And then there is, I just need to quickly stop share. Just go out of here quickly. Sorry, guys. Something's just got to hit. Oh, I don't want to do this. You cannot minimize Zoom. Okay, I won't do that. I just need this. Sorry. Something just went wrong on my side here. We'll take 2 seconds. Perfect. Let's go back to this chart. Go back there.
Give him a chance.
Tata my chance. Wait, there we go. There we go. Okay. So when we look at this chart, when we put self-leadership in the middle, okay, we look at there's different things that are here, which is looking at self-regulation, self-motivation, and self-awareness. And then within that, it overlaps. So let's have a look in a little bit more detail about this. So when we look at things like, for example, self-regulation. Self-regulation is the ability to calm yourself when you're upset, and it's to process your emotions. So we need to have this ability to regulate ourselves, much like a, give me an example of a regulator. Give me an example of a regulator. What would regulate something?
Emotional quotient.
Okay, emotional quotient. Something practical.
Practical, a motor vehicle has got a regulator if it can't go over, say, 130.
Absolutely. Nice
the
one.
Engine revs.
That as well. It's also got a regulator to not have your car overheat. Yes, George, a regulator.
Systems regulate you.
Systems regulate you, exactly. And so when we look at ourselves, do we say to ourselves, hold on a second, do I have an emotional self-regulator? Or do I just sort of say what I got to sort of say because I just sort of can say it when I sort of want to, you know? So, and that's the reality of looking at ourselves from a self-leadership perspective is what is that self-regulation? And we need to have the ability to calm ourselves when we are upset. Did you want to add something, Andrew?
Yeah, I want to just say that one of the excuses here is that people say, well, I am just wasted, just take and accept it. And they basically bark at you and take your head off. However, there's no indication of self-leadership because they're not accountable to any standard of excellence.
Exactly.
That's why they allow themselves to fly off the handle. And that's why I said emotional quotient there, because people with low emotional quotient give themselves the liberty to sin. I'm saying your character, the way that God formed you, is not an excuse to sin.
Correct. 100%. I like that. Okay, share screen. Okay, so when we look at that, then we go down to our self-motivation. Now, we've heard about self-motivation quite often. So self-motivation is your drive to do something. While motivation can fluctuate and often does as a response to an environment, self-motivation means you can find the reason, focus, and energy to complete your work or task without external influence. So most of us, we have a tendency to say, hold on a second, self-motivation is the rah that I need to do to motivate myself. But it's actually, if you look at it from a deeper perspective, it means that you have the ability to stay focused in an entity and not be influenced by external influences. So it's not just this rah, which I think most of us have this perception of self-motivation as I got to motivate myself. And yes, I mean, yes, there is a way to do that. but that only lasts for a short space of time. So it's the difference between a motivational speaker and a transformational speaker. Your transformational speaker, a week down the line, you know why you went to the conference. A motivational speaker is you feel excited 2 days later, but you can't remember why. Okay, because you're still, so they've motivated and you feel motivated, but you have no like, why do I feel the way I feel? Whereas the good intentional focus of control, absolutely, Leonie, it's about taking that ability to regulate yourself and the ability to motivate yourself. And this is what self-leadership is about. Because most of us look at self-motivation and how I'm really highly motivated, but we don't think about our self-regulation in conjunction with self-motivation. We look at them as isolated incidences most often. So when we put it together, what does that actually look like? And for me, that is, yes, that's control. Oops, there we go. This clicker of mine, too many clicks here. Okay, so with high self-motivation and the strong ability to self-regulate, you have the choice to choose. You see, if one is in isolation of the other, you just react without having the ability to choose your response. So you choose your responses to others, your actions, your decisions, handling team conflict, and challenging your own assumptions and other people's assumptions. So it's quite interesting to see that sometimes when we look at ourselves, that we either trying to self-regulate ourselves or we're trying to motivate ourselves. And so it's, oopsie, let me just let Wilma in. Okay, she's getting in now. So most of us, how's it, Wilma? It's welcome. It's good to have you back with us. And it's good to have us back with you. So we're looking at, Wilma, let me just go and share screen so you can be on the same page as us. So we're looking today at self-leadership. And what is self-leadership? And self-leadership, we've just looked at self-regulation, what it is to be able to have the ability to calm yourself when you're upset and to process emotions, and then the ability to self-motivate. And the self-motivation goes a lot deeper than just this rah, I'm highly motivated and all that kind of thing. It goes a little bit deeper into how do I actually have that ability to find reason, focus, and energy to complete the work and tasks that we are with regards to external influences. Okay. Any questions on that? Are we all good? All good? Great. Cool. All right. So now let's have a look at the third one, which is self-awareness. All right. So the self-awareness side of us and then the high potential that goes with it is really when we look at, oops, let me just put all three up. There we go. So your self-awareness is your knowledge of your own character, personality, strengths, and weaknesses. So that's your self-awareness. And you're able to understand the people around you and how they perceive you. Now, most of us have a self-awareness as in our own personality. We have a self-awareness of our strengths and our weaknesses. And we sometimes have a self-awareness of the ability to understand people. I personally think that where we lack a lot is the ability to see how people perceive us. I think very few of us from a self-leadership perspective take the time to say, hold on a second, how do other people perceive me? And one of the reasons why I believe this is because we don't want to take responsibility. Okay, so there you can see responsibility is the intersection of the awareness and the regulation. So this is about you taking responsibilities for the actions that you take. And so a lot of us are scared that if I find out how people perceive me, then I'm going to start behaving in a different way. And most of us are too scared to ask other people, how do you perceive me? Because we're scared of the truth that will come with that. Okay, so in between your high level of motivation and high level of awareness, here you're poised to reach your potential. So we need to understand that as somebody who's trying to self-lead myself and become a basically leadership myself. We need to have that mind shift into saying it's more than me being accountable to someone else. It's more than me being coached by someone else. Self-leadership is about me being able to know who I am as an individual. How do my characteristics work? How do I function with certain people? And then am I able to regulate myself, my emotions, when I'm upset? Am I able to stay calm when I'm upset? Because, and what triggers me? What is the things that trigger me? What are the things, or who is the person who triggers me? Why do they trigger me? In what circumstances am I triggered? Okay. And then when my motivation is low, it's my responsibility to bring my A game to the table. It's my responsibility to wake up in the morning and know at what point in time am I going to self-motivate. It's my responsibility in the mornings to say, hold on a second, where am I bringing my motivation to the table? I can't wait for someone else or my circumstances or my job to change to be motivated. I need to bring that self-motivation to the table. And when I do that, am I so self-aware that I'm aware enough to know how I'm impacting people around me? And that's self-leadership. And that's a very big nutshell.
Something comes to mind here again, and that is that firstly, on all three of those, self-regulation, motivation, and awareness, I score myself out of 10 to say, where do I believe is my strongest anchor out of this three? And which one is the lowest score and for what reason?
So score yourselves out of 10.
On each one of those three.
10 being, hey, I got this one mastered. And 1 being, I still have, in fact, I haven't even thought of mastering it.
Because the second step to that would be to ask somebody else. You can rate yourself, but you might be totally blinded by your abilities. Some people just overshoot when they think of themselves. Earlier years, I had that problem. I did overshoot in terms of who I wasn't realistic. So the other way would be is to ask somebody else, would you please rate me in these three areas?
Yeah, so can I just add there? So for example, there's no ways any of us could put a full 10 on any of them. Okay, there's just no ways, because we're working and we're growing ourselves from glory to glory, from perfection to perfection. So like, for example, you might, let's take, most of us are in the self-awareness side, would be, I know who I am, because most of us have done our DISC analysis, we've done personalities, we know our strengths and our weaknesses, but very few of us know how other people perceive us.
Okay, my assessment was my own assessment. That's why I said there's two steps. One, assess yourself.
Why have you put 10?
I put a 10. That I believe is my strongest, and I'm realistic. I know who I am.
Yeah, but you can't be a 10. You don't know how other people perceive you.
No. I said there's two assessments. One assessment is yourself, and the other assessment is also other people. And I am happy for every single person on here to assess me through all three of these. And I don't mind being the guinea pig, because we're here to learn. So because I know who I am, I know the disc, I know my limit, I really know, I know my weaknesses, I know my strengths. So in terms of self-awareness, I give myself a 10 because I've got no excuse. I know who I am. I can't go like, oh, I didn't understand that about myself. Bullshit. I know who I am. That's why I give myself a 10. However, I ask anybody on this call to say to me, you know who I am. I think I'm a 10 with self-awareness. It's not the case with the other two, though.
You see, but that's what I'm saying to you. Self-awareness has the one element that you're not taking into consideration here. You have no clue how other people perceive you.
I said that's the second one, so I'm ready to receive it. What do you think?
That's a package. That's a package. Self-awareness is a package. It's an A and not an A and a B. It's a package.
Okay.
So put that package into context. That self-awareness, and this is where you've got to say, okay, your knowledge of your own character, personality, strengths, weaknesses, and you're able to understand people. That part I'll give you a 10.
Sure.
But how others perceive you,
that's what I'm asking. I'm not going to judge.
So therefore you must mark yourself maybe an 8, because you have no clue how other people perceive you.
In terms of how I perceive myself, I have no excuse for leading myself. I'm a 10.
I never said you have no
However, I'll do this. I can ask a guy like Billy, how aware am I of my weaknesses, my strengths, my capabilities.
No,
You
you're
give me a
reading this,
score.
you're misunderstanding this concept.
Well, that's where I
You're
read this.
totally misunderstanding. Can someone else explain it from their perspective of what that sentence says? Do you want me to put it up again so you can read it?
Yeah, put it up.
Okay, so we're looking at your knowledge of your own character, personality, strengths, weaknesses. You're able to understand the people around you and how they perceive you, not how you perceive yourself.
Well, then I ask him. If there's any person,
Isn't it about the understanding how they perceive you, not knowing how they perceive you, but understanding how they would perceive you? Then I would agree with Doc and about the understanding the whole concept of how the interaction kind of, if it makes sense.
I hear you, Sonia. Thank you. That's the way I feel. Come.
Was that Leonie, I think?
I think that was Sonia's voice.
It was Leonie.
Okay, sorry. Thank you, Leonie. You two sound so much the same, I promise you.
But it's interesting to see that we don't take that section into consideration of how other people perceive us.
I'm aware of it, but when it comes to self-leadership, who's responsible? You.
Yeah, if I look at when you enter even with the introduction, without this last whole the 3 points, I feel it is about discovering yourself before you can help other people. And because of that, it is the point is how you see yourself, and maybe you can score yourself in a month's time again to see how you have improved on yourself. And the point scoring that I also like is, as you guys said, for someone else to score you about that's separately, to see their point of view and to see if there's a difference. And then if there's a difference, you can ask them what they see, and then by that way you can learn.
True.
I agree.
Awesome.
People should score other people. You should ask and say, score me through on all 3. Make no excuses and just say, I hear you. And then if you look at the melting pot, there's 5 people on the call. And if 5 people score me a 9 and 1 scores me a 5, I'm disregarding the 5 because I have to then understand why that person is not seeing the way that other people are seeing it.
Awesome.
Okay, but remember, I'm just showing you I'm taking accountability for myself.
100%.
That's what I'm saying.
And I'm just challenging you.
It's good.
George, did you want to say something? You're good. It's like
I will hammer bring.
Awesome. Okay, so anybody else want to share for themselves how they've rated and scored themselves?
I think everybody should write the scores down if they want to. Score yourself.
I have scored myself.
Okay, tell us. And then we
So
will
I
tell you
think-
what we think of you.
So I think for myself, for self-regulation and self-leadership, I would definitely, I think I'm round about a 6. Okay, for self-regulation. Self-motivation, I reckon I'm about a 9. I'm pretty good at that. I don't have a problem with that and changing my environment around me. When it comes to self-awareness, and I would say I'm round about a 7 in self-awareness.
Would you like me to hear my scores of you?
Go for it, buddy.
Okay. I had it in the same ratio, at least.
Yeah.
I thought that your self-motivation is the highest. I gave you an 8 for that. Your self-awareness, I gave you a 7. And for self-regulation, I gave you a 6. So I'm in the same ratio as you.
La la. Anybody else would like to share theirs?
Really?
Yes, really.
Yeah. Mine, my highest is self-motivation. Then it's a 9. Self-regulation is an 8, and in self-awareness is a 7.
Nice. Nice. Awesome. Cool. Anybody else want to share?
Good scores, Billy. I agree with you.
Sonia, self-regulation 7. Nice.
Okay, it's just easier to talk.
It is, isn't it?
Regulation. My head is just going off. Wow. Self-motivation, I will also say a 9.
Mhm.
Self-awareness, I would say about a 7.
Okay, good. Nice.
I know who I am, but what other people think or perceive me is a total different story.
It's true, hey? It's absolutely true. Awesome. And Leonie says regulation 6, motivation 7, and awareness 8. Nice and realistic.
Nice work.
Awesome.
Colonel Butler.
And so I'm just gonna score myself there. I just want to. I think I must look into this whole thing a little bit more before I would even try to do a score on it. So I don't think I'll score there. There's a lot of stuff you've got to take into consideration
Mhm.
before you can just score yourself, because out of my experience of leadership and in the space that I did leadership, it is a total different scenario than what I'm perceiving in leadership nowadays. Michelle, I spoke to you a lot about that
Mm.
the last 10, 15 years. I mean,
Yeah.
my 2 years as a military leader was totally different to what I learned to apply that to what you gave us tonight.
It's true.
It's a lot. It's got a lot to do with the leadership I'm involved now, because it's a different type of leadership.
That's right.
Your types of leadership is also something that you've got to take into consideration here, because being in a military leader, you learn how to do autocratic leadership styles, although they say you have to be a democratic leader, but you are not, because of certain stuff that's happening there. And now when you get out of that, you're going to start doing stuff, and we always said lead by the front. Now, for a military leader to lead by the front, you must be in the front. But that is physical as well, not
That's
just
right.
whereas in where I'm involved now, you have to do this stuff first before you can get your people to follow you, because nobody's going to follow you if they don't know that you can do it. So it's a bit confusing out of this whole thing to just get these two together and to get a I don't know what the English word is I'm looking for, but maybe Ant can help. You did yes, yeah, ek weet nie hoe om dit vir jou te sê nie. It's just to involve these two things together, the
Combine the
civilian.
two.
Say again?
Combine the
Not
two.
really combine the two. It's to align the two.
Yeah.
Align and combine, yeah. That I have to do that first to get myself to vote on it. So I'm not
But
going
George,
to put up.
may I say something about you as a leader? I've always said true leadership is tested when you have to lead people who volunteer. The kind of businesses you've been leading in the past few years are all volunteer businesses, and people follow you. In the army, we used to abuse our rank. I did. I mean, I had short man syndrome. I'm the first to tell you that, and I abused my rank. But when I got into the church, rank counted nothing, because you couldn't lead by respect. People don't follow you. They might follow you short-lived because of fear, but long-term, if they don't respect you, they don't follow you. And I've always said the test and the mark of leadership is those who can lead volunteers. And you are an example of, because of your diligence to really help other people, that leadership is, they love it. because you lead people like that.
So there's two different things here. Well, tonight, we're not talking about leadership, because
No, we're
with
not.
regards to leadership, there's authentic leadership, there's autocratic stewardship leadership, there's shepherdship leadership, there's transformational leadership, there's motivational leadership. So there's all different types of leadership. This evening is, how do we self-lead? So how do I, so am I aware that although I can be a certain leader and go and lead a whole lot of other people, which is one thing, most people can't self-lead. Even most leaders don't know how to self-lead, because they'll know how to lead in a certain way because they've learned a skill of leadership. Okay. And then, having said that, there's a tendency that starts happening is that most people don't understand that in order for me to be a leader, if I want to be a proper leader, it's about developing other people. So that's leadership. Whereas management, on the other hand, is about paperwork, managing, organizing, all that kind of thing. So this evening, we're talking about self-leadership. Yes. Hi, Vilma, you're back again.
I was
So this
listening
evening,
in the car
welcome back.
and I was dying to say something and I couldn't because I was driving.
Well, now you can, because so we're talking about self-leadership specifically. Yes,
Yes.
Vilma, give it to us.
Okay, so I very much agree with Anne. I'm sort of on that tour as well. I'm very aware of myself. I'm very self-motivated. And what was the third one again?
Self-control.
I think that's where I could do with the most improvement. So I wouldn't give myself a 10 anywhere, but because there's always room for improvement. But I definitely score high in the first two and slightly lower in the third one.
Awesome.
And I also think they're different levels, not levels, but almost like a split personality, because you've got your professional, in my professional life, I'm a demon.
Okay.
I'm a perfectionist. In my personal life, I am much more relaxed. So I tend to be more mellow. But I am very demanding in my professional life. And I will make sure that people notice me and that I give my opinion where I feel I have the self-worth and the knowledge to give that opinion. So awesome. Therefore, I would grade myself on two sides, on the left and the right-hand side of the line, if possible.
Yeah.
But I'm much more fierce in my professional life than I am in my personal life.
Okay, nice. I think a lot of us are like that. Awesome. Great discussion. Thank you very much for that. And thank you, Dr. Anne, for that too.
Is there anybody else who wanted to add something before we go on?
You're all good.
I'd like to say one more thing. Yes. To lead yourself. I think there is nobody on this earth that does not need a mentor. In other words, you always follow someone, an example for you. So I think that nobody can say that they perfectly lead themselves. If they do that, then I think they're a little bit deluded.
Nasty put. Okay, great, super. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to have a look at, sorry, my little button doesn't, come on. There we go. So let's look at 8 core competencies and skills that we will need for self-leadership. And we've covered this a lot, which is self-awareness and self-knowledge. And the self-awareness is the ability to perceive yourself clearly through inward introspection. It is the act of practicing mindfulness with the attention directed towards yourself. All right, so I think we covered that in great detail. Basic self-knowledge is vital to understanding one's needs, motives, and drives. At a minimum, this includes the following 4 elements. All right, so We need to know our personal traits. We've covered that. We need to know our personal strengths and weaknesses. We need to know our values, and we need to know our talents and our interests. So when it comes to self-awareness and self-knowledge, it is important for us to know all of these things, and we've gone through these over the last couple of weeks, and it is important for us to say, this is who I am. And when we say personal traits, strengths, and weaknesses, it's about knowing your leadership styles, your leadership types. It's about knowing your DISC profiling, your Myers-Briggs, your strengths, as in strength finders, those kind of things, and put the picture together. Okay, so that's the first thing, self-awareness and self-knowledge. The second one is identifying your desired experiences. So going back to that again, it is all about setting personal goals, in fact, even setting emotional goals, setting out goals that are like, for example, I want to be kinder towards that person. I think, Shalane, you used it very beautifully today when we were talking in the meeting this morning about that love and seeing things from a different perspective, and seeing people through the filter of God's love, and how it changes those things. And I don't think many of us think along those lines, and how important it is in order to build those strength relationships is identifying those desired experiences. Okay, let's get back again. Thank you. Okay, click button, there we go. Then constructive thought and decision making. Do we spend time with ourselves going through and constructively analyzing how we make decisions and how we go through thought processes? And so when I do things like that, when I constructively start saying, this is my thought process, I can actually enable myself, which means I lead myself to becoming better in processing and making decisions in a certain manner. Anybody want to add anything to that? Okay, you're thinking, all right. Planning competencies would be your planning and goal setting, how important it is as from a self-leadership perspective, because we spend a lot of time planning our goals, where we want to go, what's our financial goals, what's our wealth goals, but we don't spend time thinking about, hold on a second, what would I like as my personal leadership goals? How would I personally like to lead myself? How would I personally like to have people think of me from a different perspective? Those kind of things. So what is your planning and your goal setting with regards to your self-leadership? Then optimizing your motivation. We've spoken about making sure that we're bringing the energy to our own table, and how important it is for us to self-motivate. Harnessing the ecosystem. So when we talk about harnessing the ecosystem, it means, how do I understand my environment that's around me? So Vilma alluded to it just now. I have my home environment, I have my work environment, I have an environment where I play golf, I have an environment where I play squash, I have an environment where I play whatever it might be. I have an environment when I go to my children's house. I have an environment around my children and my grandchildren. So we have this ecosystems that are around us. And how do we spend time saying within that, and if I go back to the self-awareness and the self-regulation and the self-motivation in each of these areas, how am I leading myself? Okay, so are we harnessing and making sure that we are doing the right things in the right places at the right time with who we are? Okay, then that's your harnessing. That's number 6. Right, number 7. Sorry, there we go. 7 is embracing failure and cultivating grit. So it's as I am going to fail, I am going to mess up, I am going to be doing things. How do I embrace that? And then the grit is the the fuss bait is another word for grit in this. How do I cultivate? I can hang in there, I can keep going. So those are your 7. Number 8 is amplifying performance. So there are 3 techniques worth learning to amplify self-leadership performance. The first one is high performance planning entails asking yourself a set of questions about how you can perform optimally during a predefined period and reviewing your ambitions at the end of it. So how do I get myself to the next level in whichever, and I wouldn't suggest trying to high performance yourself in all of your ecosystem areas. Choose one of them and say, how do I get myself to just be that much better in that area, in that ecosystem? For example, you could choose your work environment and say to yourself, in my work environment, I want to master the self-regulation side of it for the next week. And that's how you're going to get yourself, by planning, making sure you ask yourself the why questions, the why, what, the why, what, how, when, where, and how I would improve in those areas. And that's how we can get improve our performance. So that's the first one of the 3 techniques. The second one is self-coaching. Okay, as a constructive thought strategy, it involves solution seeking by mentally navigating a coaching framework. So we've spoken about mentors, and it is important for us to have mentors and coaches to take us through this period. But if you have a coach or a mentor, and you have this coach, you have this mentor, and it's so great. So you go through your mentor session, you have this amazing session with this person, but you don't go and do any self-introspection and self-coaching through the week until you meet again. That actual meeting, that session with that mentor and coach is fruitless. So it is about, how do I have that self-coaching, which comes back to self-discipline and those kind of things. So for example, I have got myself a dietitian, and she sends me a nice, beautiful menu, and then my neighbor comes along with some slap chips. And now, how am I going to self-coach myself through this process? Because I have been enticed to cheat, or should I say treat?
Treat.
I needed to treat myself, not cheat. Okay, you see how we can justify everything and anything. So what are my thought strategies that go with that, Mr. Neighbor? All right.
So that is the mocking mind.
That is the 100%, Billy.
6 love, Billy.
6 love. That is the mocking mind, and the mocking neighbor too. He's soon going to be your neighbor too, Billy. Oh, we have some fun in our neighborhood. Okay. All right, so that's the first one. The first one was high performance planning. The second one was all about self-coaching. And then the third one is the functional visualization techniques. Guys, I think we sometimes, not sometimes, most times, find that, and I know George and Tessa can help us a lot with this, it's all about that, how do I visualize where I want to go? So that is that mental rehearsal of a desired goal and behavior that you really want, and where do you want to go from there? What is it that you're wanting out of life? And I think because we're so busy, we don't spend time in visualization, in adding to those senses, and enabling our senses to get to the next level, because we need to look at that. So to amplify our performance, when we're self-leading, it is about also, when do I spend time in visualization? I mean, I think about it myself, and it's like the only time I'm kind of like on my own quietly doing something is when I'm driving a car, and I'm like, that's definitely the wrong time to visualize. Okay, close my eyes and visualize, because it's not going to work. So when do we make time for this? Okay, and I know
4 in the morning.
Yes, exactly. When I'm fast asleep, I'm actually in dreamland. Completely different visualization. So that's number 8 on the scale of where we want to go from there. And so those are your points that I would like to just share with you this evening. And no, 8, I said 8.
8.
It was 8, I said 8. There we go. 8 core competencies. All right, cool. All right, so self-leading is it's not just as simple as I'm going to lead myself and become better at discipline, because I think a lot of us think that self-leadership is discipline, and how do I become a more disciplined person, and how do I lead myself so therefore I stop doing certain things. But when we've got to go back and have a look at what is self-leadership, and when we put it into the context of those 3 spheres in our lives, and then when we're not just the 3 spheres of self-regulation, self-motivation, and self-awareness, it's like, it's when I align my self-motivation and my self-regulation, I'm able to give myself choices. When I align my self-motivation with my self-awareness, I start tapping into my potential. And then when I align my self-awareness and my self-regulation, I take responsibility for myself. So yes, we're looking at the regulation, the motivation, and the awareness, but the underlying thing is it enables me to take responsibility. It enables me to make right choices, sound choices, and unemotional choices. And also it raises my potential. And so when we look at those put together, and when I start mastering them, I start tapping into potential, making right choices, and taking full responsibility for myself. Anybody else? What did you get out of it? What did you like to add to it? And what have you learned? What's your aha? Right, who would like to? Yes,
I missed out on so much. I want to talk.
Go for it.
What I got out of tonight, and I was listening in the car, so I did sort of go in and out a little bit. But what I get out of tonight is, number one, there's a time and place for everything, and there's a way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you find yourself in the sweet spot in those 3 places, then most often you will be on the right road. Then the one thing that I demand in my practice is loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no loyalty, then there's no place for you. And it is relationship before function.
Mm-hmm.
Although function in my type of work is very important, it is more important to have the right attitudes and the right relationship, and then the learning will follow. And then as the true entrepreneurial spirit is, if you find your why, the rest follows.
Mm-hmm. Nice, thank you.
That's basically, yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, I feel so much better now.
Thank you. This is good. Awesome.
And just let me say one thing, that when I spoke about mentoring just now, I don't think that one needs to live in somebody else's pocket to have a mentor. And I'm going to sort of put this on the table, but I find it very difficult to find a mentor on the different levels. And you may all now let me say this publicly. For me, and she doesn't even really know it, Michelle van Tonder is a mentor for me in many ways.
Oh, thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
I'll listen carefully to what you say. Let me tell you that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Well, I might as well shoot now and talk. You
Yes.
know what, Vilma, I'm blessed to be here tonight because, you know, I've got my own video series on self-leadership, but tonight was a total new dimension in terms of taking self-leadership to a more practical level, because the self-leadership course that I designed was my own material, and I didn't study any books. I just did it out of my own work experience. But then I just looked at Michelle's pragmatic step-by-step approach, and I thought to myself, man, I'm so blessed to be here tonight, because I'm truly inspired by tonight's training and teaching. I'm going to regurgitate this for the next week every day. I can tell you guys that. My aha was that, again, out of the 8 core competencies, I scored myself on highs and lows. And the one that I literally had a very, very low score was identifying desired experiences.
Yeah.
And I realized that's my what? I'm going to do that. So that's my outflow from what that was my aha tonight. It's like, yes, I've got all the core competencies in terms of the actions that have been taken, but just there's one key element tonight that I've never been exposed to. And I've been a leader for years. And I am so thirsty to go now look at this identifying desired experiences. And I'm blessed to be here tonight. Thank you for this is a great topic.
Thank you.
I was so listening to your bantering at the beginning of the session. I loved it.
That's iron sharpens
You
iron.
don't always have to agree with each other to understand each other.
100%, and iron sharpens iron, Wilma. Awesome. Who else would like to say next?
Willie is next. Come.
Yes, Willie.
Although the heading is self-leadership, you can't do it on your own. You need other people to help you with the self-leadership.
Yes.
So it's also interesting for me, if you do this right, then you will lead like Jesus.
Wow, awesome, Billy. Thank you. That's a good good eye opener there. That's true.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And I think there's for me a much more emphasis on. It has changed for me to self leadership, the importance of that in the holistic or total leadership thing. And then just something else, when you talked about the diet and to go and apply it, and I thought of a Bible verse, and then when I looked at it, it's more or less all 8 of them comes together. It's James 1 verse
22.
22.
He knows it well. He knows people well. Yes, Billy. Which is?
So it's not the one part is listen. You can have a mentor and you can read.
Yes.
But the most important thing is to apply, to do. Yeah.
Yeah. Brilliant. The do.
So that's that.
Nice one. Lovely. Thank you. And thank you very much, Sonia. Thank you. We'll continue week on week. Unless, thank you guys for being so understanding for the last 2 weeks when we were away, and I totally misunderstood some time zones as well, but I appreciate it. Thank you. All right, George, you want to say something? Leonie?
Yeah, George will tell you what he learned.
Say again?
You need to share what you learned tonight. What was the aha?
Yeah, you know what, and just touched on it, and Wilma also said it, and I've said it before, that after I left the military, I learned about leadership from Michelle. I think more in my 22 years in the military, but it was a totally different type of leadership. We touched on an aspect of leadership tonight, and I think it's a small but important aspect. So you've got to see this whole leadership thing must be seen in the whole context of leadership, and that is just one part of it. And you've got to bring all these things together to get to what we were speaking about tonight, because you've got to know what type of leader you are. You've got to know a lot of stuff before you can do what we did tonight. And that's why I said I don't want to rate myself, because you've got to get this whole thing in context and then go there. Yeah, and then go there, what you were talking about, just to rate yourself on that. That's my take on this. So yeah, I'm not going to expand more on that. So
awesome. Thanks, George. I think next week we'll look at all the different types of leadership.
Yeah.
You know, I think also what George says is so true. And what the words that he didn't use, but what I think he said is, do as I say, but not only that, do as I do.
Was part of it.
Yeah.
Part of it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, guys, for sharing. Yes, Leonie.
Self-leadership has always been to me part of your knowing who you are, and but linked to ability and skills, and not being in denial about what you cannot do or what your shortcomings are. And I'm a huge fan of the Myers-Briggs. When I was in corporate management, I always had it done with all the team members, because it's to be a leader, knowing your people and knowing yourself is great. But I've never, my aha tonight as well was to link it to your identifying your desired experiences. I never linked experiences with self-leadership. It was always a to-do thing, or ability or a skill. And I'm a fan of relationships. When I say, I usually say, my relationships take me to where my skills and my ability cannot. So what I cannot do, I need to have a relationship in place for me to reach a certain goal. So that was my tonight, is how do I align what I am, what I know about myself, what I know I am or am not, to that gap of becoming. It's a do thing. It's not a am thing, if it makes sense.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Sonia, Tessa?
I want to say another thing, Michelle, if I'm
sure.
You know, we were talking about, and I think Wilma was speaking about it, about having a coach or a
mentor.
A mentor. Sorry, a mentor is the right word. And in what you showed tonight is, and what Ant was talking about is, you got to have a person, or you got to have people that tells you how you are perceived as a leader. Now, where I grew up from, when I was an officer commanding of a unit, the command structure is you've got a second in command, and then you've got your RSM. Now, whenever I took over a unit, or I started at a unit, in my first week in that unit, I would get the RSM in, and I would have a talk with him, and I would tell him, he's in charge of the NCOs in the unit. I'm in charge of the officers as well as the NCOs, because he falls below me, but he is a direct spokesman to me. So whatever I do in the unit, I gave him the right. At that time, when I take over the unit, I give him the right to walk into my office at any time and tell me, listen, you are making shit, or whatever you are doing now is not right. So this is the way that I did it. And you could have a mentor in your workplace that works like that. But you could have somebody that you can tell that you must give him the right to walk into your office, even if it's your subordinate. You must have the right to come to you and tell you, and you must not what you call it,
defend or justify.
You mustn't take it out on him, or what is the right word?
Defend, justify.
You do not victimize him because of his opinion.
And this is what you must not victimize this guy or this person that you give the right to come and tell you what you are doing wrong. But if you do that, you can, wherever you work, and that doesn't matter if you're a military man or if you're in a civilian office, you must have a person like that, because you have people that work below you. So
acknowledge his bravery.
Where Anthony's working now, I have a person that can come to him and tell him, listen, Anth, this decision you made is not up to standard. This is what the people are saying below you. This is what the people are saying on the ground. So please review whatever you did. And if you stay with that, this is what's going to happen. So if you have a person in your workplace, wherever you are working, that does that, I mean, it will just help you to run your place in a proper way, and to look after your people, because they are the business. The people in your business is the business.
Yeah.
So so this is maybe a tip. I don't know. This is what I did, and it worked well for me because you always knew that when you were doing something wrong. Because when you're in charge of a place, you are alone.
Yeah.
You've got no friends there. You are the one. You're the one making the decisions. You are the one giving the orders, paying the people. You are alone.
High
Nobody's
winds, lots of
friends
wind.
with you. They're not friends with you. They work for you.
Yeah.
So you're alone. So you've got to have somebody that can tell you you're wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Doesn't matter.
Something in the retail trade I found, George, and that's actually quite uncanny, is that every single superior I had opened themselves to say, please, if you see that I am doing something, I could have been doing it better, what have you, go ahead. Not one of them could take it. Every single one would explode, would justify, and would actually victimize you after that because they just did not have the maturity to receive it,
Shows
and
you where
work
they
through
were.
it and to grow from it. Not one of them. I'm talking about leaders I've worked with in the retail space. Only when we later on when we started doing leadership things, there's one guy, it's a black guy, Dr. Dale Bronner. I think today he is my role model of leadership. Man, you can tell him, although he's one of the best leaders in the world, when you share with him something that he could maybe just see from another angle, he absorbs it with such humility that you feel encouraged that you have the courage to share with a guy like that is a super leader. But it's just funny that in the retail trade, I don't know what it is, there's the trade. They all explode. They're so oversensitive, it's an issue.
And that comes back to what I said in the beginning. You must be able to lead and must be leaded. Be led. What's the word? Be led.
Be led. Yeah.
Willie,
You know, sorry, Willie, go ahead.
I was going to say, Shalane, unmute.
Yes, I do agree with George. So a good leader also needs to be a good follower and take negativity constructive. But I wasn't here the whole time. So the bit that I got here is you're fooling yourself if you're not being objective. So when you want to solve a problem or make a decision, you need to be objective, not emotional.
Difficult.
Not what's in it, what can I gain from it? You need to be objective regard that. And a lot of the things that you said about a mentor, I call in Afrikaans a klankbord. So I've got a friend that's my klankbord. So that would explain,
nice word.
You've done something wrong, or you could do better there. You lack the ability to be compassionate about something or what. And also it boils down to me to self-respect.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
if you can't respect yourself, how are you going to respect others? You won't, if you can't give your best, and you won't be able to see the best in somebody else as well. So if you're being inferior, or got problems, inferior problems, you won't be able to see the other people who they are.
It's so cool.
That's
absolutely.
Thanks, Shalane. That's so true.
The mirror man.
The mirror man. Yeah, the man in the mirror. Mirror man.
Man in the mirror.
Awesome.
Yeah. I think it's always good to have the wisest piece of advice that a leader can take anywhere, I think, is to always keep, and both George and alluded to it, is to keep one foot on the ground. Don't, because high trees catch a lot of wind. So one of the things that I have learned in my long walk is that I have learned more from my failures than what I have learned from my successes.
True.
And it's very nice to have success. It feels lekker. But I tell you, when you fail, you have that thing that I need to do better. There needs to be growth. And you need to then acknowledge that there needs to be growth to not fail. but you're
And
always
as-
going to fail somewhere.
Yeah. And as
So
John
therefore, there's
Maxwell,
always place for growth.
yeah, and as John Maxwell says, it's the art of learning to fail forward. Yes, Billy.
Yeah. And learn to be a good loser before you're a good winner.
True.
Again, to get back to the self-leadership, I think the difference in the way that the army worked and what we are talking here is with a mentorship or reading a book, it's exactly the same. The book won't jump off the shelf into your hand. You will look for the right book and to read. If you want to be a theft of motor vehicles, you'll go and talk to people that is good with that.
Yeah.
And so the same, you go and look for a mentor, a person that is the same inspiration, or what's the word?
Yeah.
Than yours. So you go and look for them, not
like-minded.
Like-minded, yes. Yeah, absolutely. Tessa,
And not
Sonia,
unequally yoked.
do you want to add anything, ladies?
I was very proud of myself this week.
Yes.
I actually retrenched someone.
Oh, okay.
And I did, although my heart bled, it was professional. I had all the right people there. I brought the right motivation, no feelings, but facts. And I was so proud of myself, even though I felt very, very bad. But it was the right thing to do.
But it was well done for the follow through. Well done for the follow through. And setting the boundary. And setting the boundary to have to do what you had to do.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing when you make the right decision, all of a sudden doors and windows open. It's the second time this year that has happened. The minute the right decision was made, I mean, the doors, the floodgates seem to open.
Wow.
It is overwhelming almost. So, and it's a sign that you're on the right road, you're doing the right thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Wonderful. Thanks, Wilma. Anybody else want to add anything so we can wrap this up?
I'm looking forward to next week's leadership types with the Didascalos here on my right. It's going to be great.
Yeah, let's look at the different types of leaders, and then we can identify where we are, and then we can tie it back to this. I'll post this, what is self-leadership, on the group and the recording. And thank you so much for all your input. Really appreciate it. And we look forward to next week, Tuesday.
Yeah, I really missed not being there because we didn't do last week, and I think the week before that I was in theatre. So I basically this was the third week, and I thought I'm not going to miss this.
Well, I'm glad you managed to join us. Okay, ladies, gentlemen, God bless you. Thank you very much. Have a good week.
Bye, everybody.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Cheers, guys.